Hello, everyone. Are you doing good? I'm Vanessa. This is my sign name. I'm an astrologist and the founder of AstroWoke. Now, I've been thinking about history. There are patterns that tie in with the rhythmic cycles of astrology. This is caused by the planet cycles and their rotational movements. Now, when you consider the term death, it actually represents Saturn. This is because of the historically common experience for us deaf people facing many barriers, restrictions, and discrimination. The source of this history stems from our language, American Sign Language, being a visual language. Contrast this to spoken and written languages, the grammar and structure are composed entirely differently. Now, imagine if you become a first-time parent and you have a deaf baby. Feeling unsure of what to do, you may reach out to your doctor to seek guidance. The thing is that doctors typically offer one of two types of choices: getting their child a cochlear implant or hearing aids to develop lip reading skills or oralism. So parents don't know any better. They follow the doctor's instructions by sending their child to an oral education program. But unfortunately, deaf people cannot actually access information through lip reading. Only about 30% is understood accurately at best, so it's never full access. What this means is deaf children go to public schools to learn only speech and spelling. Then they miss majority of the information. They become disconnected socially, struggle to make friends, and ultimately disconnected from the world to the point of isolation, resulting from language deprivation. ASL, though, is considered a fully accessible language for deaf people because it utilizes visual depiction and structures, making it easy for the eyes to understand. Unfortunately, though, only 75% of parents don't learn how to communicate with their children through sign, to the point where deaf children are simply not being given access to the world. When I studied deaf history through the lens of Saturn's cycle, I noticed the year of 1817, it changed everything for the deaf community. Because that year, Saturn was in Aquarius, and this was the year where the first deaf school was established in the United States, in Connecticut. They acknowledged that ASL was the language that truly provided access, and children signed while learning. Over time, so many deaf people pass through there, developing the culture, sharing traditions, which can be identified as the beginning of deaf culture. It's wonderful to see the deaf community continue to expand and grow. However, in the 1960s, technology was still creating barriers for the deaf community. For access, deaf people had to depend on others who hear, like family members or a neighbor, for simple tasks like making a phone call for a doctor's appointment. It was disempowering for deaf people being put in a position of dependency and having their power and independence stripped away. Personal decisions now have the constant involvement of others, and this was a profound barrier. This happens a lot in the deaf community, being put in a position where you have to depend on hearing people's voices to facilitate through barriers. In the early 1960s, Saturn entered Aquarius, and news spread that there was something called VRS, which was the voice relay service, that could be used with the TTY for phone calls. This enabled deaf people to finally be able to make phone calls independently for doctor's appointments, calling their kids' schools, or anything else. This allowed many to feel more independent internally, which is so Aquarius. Searching for our own power to be independent on our own while navigating through life. Plus, simultaneously, the first sign language book was published and distributed. This educated the public on how to communicate with us deaf people too. Then in 2020, Saturn was in Aquarius again, which was our Saturn return. The year had a lot of instances occur with cultural appropriation, where people started to exploit our sign language for their own benefit. For example, a hearing person used ASL for her music on YouTube, which got 1 million views, and she also teaches ASL. But she is not fluent and doesn't sign correctly. She ends up telling others how to sign incorrectly with mistakes and errors. This is cultural appropriation that ends up limiting deaf people's success because deaf people are the ones who should be teaching ASL, not hearing people. Then in the year 2021, Saturn squared Uranus, which triggers deaf people to realize we are ready to reclaim our power by standing up for our rights and requiring society to acknowledge our language and our community by educating people to provide accessibility through transcripts and captions and raising awareness. I started to notice that more and more people are gaining access to information than ever before, which is so great. For example, during 2021, AMC Theaters announced that they were going to provide open captions directly on the screen for everyone to watch, which was such an incredible success for us deaf people to finally be able to watch movies. Typically, this would always be frustrating for us, never being able to really access movies like normal people. We'd have to put up with adaptive glasses, unreliable captions, and other dynamics that would take away from our film watching enjoyment. The options always felt so limiting. But now, with open captions on the screen, we could finally participate in the normal experience of watching a movie the same way as everyone else in the room. Another example is in Hollywood in the film Coda. It won several Oscars, and an actual deaf actor won an Oscar as well. The deaf community was so unbelievably proud of this history because Hollywood historically has been using hearing actors to play deaf roles. The deaf community has been outspoken about this, making complaints and making it very clear that it is unacceptable to do for years. And now we finally have authentic deaf actors from the deaf community playing these roles. Not only has this been indicative of an upward trend of more opportunities for deaf actors and deaf roles, but also it won several Oscars, which is a really good start. This also raises acknowledgement of the deaf community and our contributions to the point where it can really open doors of new opportunities of success. Like now we're really starting to get there. The reason why I'm talking about Saturn and Aquarius is based on the impact that it's had for our deaf community. We have navigated through tremendous amount of limitations, barriers, and discriminations. We have unified and protested against the oppression of sound dominating our deafness. There's people pressuring us to get cochlear implants to make it easier for hearing people to communicate with us. Some people force us to be oral or to lip read just to accommodate hearing society, which is Saturn's thing. When society puts the responsibility and burdens on us to satisfy the demands of hearing society without society accepting our deaf identity, nor our language, without accepting our deaf culture and traditions or anything else. It is the reason why we become experts with the concept of resistance. We have to stand up for our rights and fight to advocate. We become so skilled that we actually gain more respect through increasing our access to greater society. So every time Saturn enters Aquarius, during those years, we always find even more greatness for deafness based on our resistance and standing up for our rights. But it is true. When we experience greater challenges, it brings us further opportunities for us to grow, teaching us to stand up for our rights, encouraging us to educate others, and to raise further awareness. This gains us mutual respect and deepens our ability to respect one another. For our community's needs, access is key to everything. This allows us to get aligned with people to the point where we can truly connect with each other finally. Thank you for watching.